The start of the new year is the time to make personal resolutions. And for many artists, the goal for 2026 is to not only survive, but to thrive. You've determined that this is going to be your year, and you're willing to do almost anything to grow your brand and make some money as a freelance artist. You just don't know how. For those of you who haven't watched any of my videos, my name is Anthony Strife. For those of you who do know me, this might be a pretty weird video to see from me and my channel. After all, I'm a professional copywriter and storyteller. I can barely draw anything to save my life. So what am I doing making a guide for freelance artists? Well, it's simple. While it's true that I'm not an artist myself, I am a business consultant. I spent years coordinating with artists during my time as both a professional copywriter and while running my own companies. I am the last person you should talk to if you want tips on how to draw or paint. But I am the first person you should talk to if you want to not only make money, but make more of it with your content. So whether you're a brand new artist with no idea where to start, or a veteran artist who's looking to attract more clients and even expand into regular business contacts, whether you're trying to combat the threat of generative AI or any of the combination of the above, join us here at Mercenary Publishing as we discuss how to grow as a freelance artist in 2026. Congratulations! You've been drawing for a while, and you feel you're ready to make some money off of your artistic talent. The problem is, you're not quite sure how to go about it, so you're now asking yourself, how should you get started as a freelance artist? Well, contrary to what you might hope, there's a lot more to worry about when it comes to being a freelance artist than just making cool art. While it might feel overwhelming at first, we've done our best to break down the major tasks you should accomplish as soon as possible if you want to start attracting customers and turn them into clients. If you're an experienced artist, this is a good reminder that you can use the timestamps to skip to more relevant parts of the video. As for the rest of you, especially you brand new freelance artists, here are the 3 things you'll absolutely need if you want customers to hire you. 1. A portfolio and commission explanation page. 2. A social media platform for customer outreach. 3. A reliable and trustworthy payment processing system. Going back to 1, the first thing you should make before anything else is a page that shows off your art portfolio and explains the types of commissions you'll be willing to take. When it comes attracting customers, the most important aspect is to help clients see the kind of art they'll get were they to hire you. This may seem obvious, but I've met some great artists over the years who made it incredibly hard to see their work portfolio. There are several ways to go about this. You can combine steps 1 and 2 and just make your main social media page your portfolio. This is the cheapest and easiest options, and it means that every time you post art to your portfolio, you're posting art for your fans and the rest of the internet to see. The main problem with using a social media platform is that you generally don't pick the order or types of images you want to show off. If you want to show off your art pieces in a specific order, or want to show off you can draw in multiple styles, you're better off making your own website. A website will cost you more, but you will have much more control over how your art is seen. Furthermore, you can also combine your payment processing with your website to make orders even easier. These kinds of websites usually cost over $100 a year to maintain though, so starting your own portfolio website is typically recommended for freelance artists who have been around a few years. Whether you decide to use social media or create your own website, you need to make it as easy as possible for people to find your commission page. This is a short document, usually 1 to 2 pages long, explaining the terms of your commission contract and what clients should expect when hiring you. Always make sure you have the following when creating a commission page. how much a typical commission will, how much are your add-on fees, such as business rights, rushed orders, extra characters, etc., how commissions are to be paid, how long the average commission takes, what you are comfortable drawing, what you aren't comfortable drawing, how to contact you with questions. You can organize the answers to these questions in any order, but make sure you emphasize how potential clients can reach out to you if they want to hire you for work. If you can get a client to send you a DM or email, you're generally most of the way there in order to get freelance work agreement in place. Speaking of which, I absolutely recommend having a dedicated work email if you're serious about becoming a freelance artist. I understand you younger artists might be more comfortable using DMs through social media platforms like Discord and X, but you will limit your potential client base if you insist on working through DMs. For larger orders, and especially commercial orders, businesses need an easy-to-maintain paper trail for communications. That means using email. So don't expect to be treated as a serious freelance artist until you have an easy-to-find work email clients can reach out to for commissions. Having said that, it is important to have a presence on social media to try and attract potential clients. Where should you be posting? Everywhere. Everywhere you can. X, Instagram, ArtStation, Blue Sky, Facebook, Discord fan art channels, YouTube collage videos and community posts. The trick of attracting customers on the internet is surprisingly simple, and yet it is a mistake that too many freelancers make. If you want people to notice you, your job is to try and get as many impressions as possible, and that means posting anywhere and everywhere you can. It's time-consuming, it's not fun, but it is a vital part of the business if you actually care about attracting clients. The good news is that there are many browser extensions and reposting bots that will do the work for you. As long as you set up the accounts, the bots will take any post you make on one platform and paste a copy of it on all of your other social media platforms. However, it isn't perfect, and there is a limit on how much you can likely handle as a freelance artist. So my recommendation would be to pick 1 to 3 main social media platforms to focus your attention on. As a beginner artist, I would recommend the following. Number 1, X, or Twitter. Yeah, there's a lot of issues with the website, but it is the main place to go to if you want to show your artwork off to the most amount of people. If you just can't bring yourself to use X, then Blue Sky is the next best alternative, though know that second best is still a fraction of the size of X. Number 2, Instagram. Instagram has a love and hate relationship with artists. If the algorithm likes your post, you're going to get a ton of impressions, but actually converting impressions to dedicated followers is a lot harder compared to X. You also don't have as much room to work with in terms of organizing your portfolio and posting commission updates, so you'll probably need a dedicated website along with your Instagram account. Number 3, ArtStation. ArtStation isn't a widely used website, but the benefit of having an account there is that most people who visit it are actively looking for an artist to hire. My advice is to make an ArtStation account and post at least a couple pieces there per year, especially since it's a go-to platform for large companies and big professional clients. Now that you have your portfolio and commission form ready and social media accounts to share your art, you're almost ready to open for business. However, there's no point in anyone hiring you if they can't even pay you for your work. What payment system would I suggest using? For simplicity's sake, and for global clients, the best and easiest payment platform is always going to be PayPal. Some artists don't like PayPal due to the many fees it tacks onto transactions, especially when it comes to international transactions. But the truth is that most payment platforms have associated fees you just can't get around. At the very least, it's always worth having PayPal as a payment option. One way you can save money when carrying out transactions on PayPal is this. On PayPal, you can send money for goods and services, or you can send money to friends and family. Goods and services payments tack on an extra fee in exchange for payment protection in case you, the artist, fail to deliver. However, if you can get the customer to trust you, then you can just request a payment for friends and family to save on the fees. How you do that will be discussed later in the video. So what should you do as an alternative to PayPal? It's basically a pick your poison. Stripe, Square, Zelle, Wise, Venmo. Find a payment processing system you're comfortable with and just hope that your client is also willing to use it as well. This is kind of why I just suggest sticking to PayPal since it is so universal. But if a client is really interested in hiring you, they'll figure out a way to get you the money you're owed. But once you have all of this in place, you're ready to start attracting clients. However, like any business, you can't just put an open sign on a window and hope people will walk in. No, you have to attract some clients first. So let's talk about the best practices you should follow to grow your artistic brand. You have a good art portfolio and an easy-to-read commission page that includes the best way to contact you. You have social media platforms to show off your art to the world and attract potential clients. You have a payment system waiting to start processing customer orders. Now what? How do you actually attract customers? Heck, even if you aren't interested in making money, how do you get people to follow you as an artist? In a perfect world, the algorithms that fuel top social media websites would push your work to people they know will love your art. Unfortunately, the internet is a cutthroat place. So unless you're willing to be just as tenacious, you're probably never going to be discovered. Yeah, it sucks. As someone who believes that it is sinful to be rude and finds it painful to be a pest and a bother, I absolutely hate what you have to do to attract clients in the modern digital age. But there's a reason why everyone knows who Mr. Beast is and why nobody acts like Mr. Rogers anymore. If you want to grow as a freelance artist, well, prepare to make obnoxious your middle name. But before I continue with this section, I need to make one thing clear. The chances of you making a living wage off of freelance art is low. Given enough time and tenacity, anyone could eventually do it, but you can only live for so long as a starving artist. That's why the first tip I give to anyone trying to make it as any kind of artist is this. If you're going to make anything artistic, you have to do it because you love doing it. Do not just write or draw or create that which seems to be popular on the market. Trend chasing rarely works out well for anyone, and that is especially true for the modern fan. In a world full of slop, it's really the passion projects that truly shine. So whatever you make going forward, make something you can always be proud of no matter what direction your life takes. There is a balancing act to this. You can make that which you're proud of, but also go in a direction that the greater customer market will actually be interested in. Here's how I would recommend you walk that tricky tightrope. To answer the question of what you should be drawing, my advice is 50% original characters and 50% fan art. Drawing original characters allows you to fully express your artistic inclinations. You'll have a ton of fun, you'll grow your talent, and you may even come up with the next new hot thing that no one could have expected. You also show off to potential clients your artistic imagination, that you are more than capable of drawing their original characters as well. But when it comes to promotion and getting eyes on your art, you're going to have a much easier time attracting fans by drawing fan art. This is especially true by making use of the hashtag and alt tag system. Outside of social media algorithms pushing curated content onto people, fans find art by searching for it with specific terms like the names of their favorite series and characters. Please remember this detail, because this is the reason why you should be working towards a very specific goal as an artist. One for me, one for them. That is basically the philosophy you should be taking as an artist. By doing so, you can remain happy that you're drawing what you like to draw, while also capitalizing on what's currently popular in hopes of drawing in new fans to your brand. There may come a day when you have so many fans you can always draw just what you want. But until that day comes, this is the system you should follow to consistently and quickly grow your fan and client base. Well, how you post your drawings matters just as much as what you draw. And this is where you have to get really comfortable being an annoying rat that just won't go away. All of social media is dominated by an important number called impressions. Impressions is the number of times in which the social media platform presented your content to another user on the platform. If you post a piece of content that has 100 impressions, then that means your content has been seen in some capacity across 100 separate instances. So here's why social media is a friggin' nightmare. Once the content is presented to a user, the social media platform observes how the user interacts with it. If the user engages with it in any way, such as by starting at it for a long time, leaving a like, a favorite, or a comment, then the social media believes it is, quote, good content, and so pushes the content out to more users. The problem is that a social media algorithm doesn't actually understand why the user is interacting with it, which is why controversial content, especially rage bait, is so popular these days. The other big problem with social media is that it really screws new users who don't have much of a platform. For instance, even if you talk about the most popular content on YouTube or X, you're probably only going to get 100 or so impressions. A 1 to 2% conversion rate, in which a user actually clicks on your content after seeing it, is normal. So that's why you usually only get a couple people to interact with you when you start off on social media. This is why accounts tend to snowball in growth over time. Did you know that it took Mr. Beast, who currently boasts the most subscribed YouTube channel in the world, 3 years to break 1,000 subscribers? It then took him another 2 years to break 10,000 subscribers. But after that is when he started averaging over 500,000 subscribers per year. Because of how impressions escalate, Mr. Beast gained more subscribers in 2017 than he did in 2012 to 2016 combined. In other words, once you hit it big, don't be surprised if you gain more followers in 1 year than you do in your first 5 years of being a content creator. But you've been posting artwork and other content for a while now, and it feels like you're talking to the void. No matter what you do, no matter how good your content is, you can't get more than a few hundred impressions. So, assuming you don't want to pay for impressions by running ads, how do you get more impressions on your artwork? It's simple. You do it by being a parasite and leeching off of bigger accounts than yours. So yeah, this isn't going to be a fun part of your art career, but if you're serious about making money by being a freelance artist, this is genuinely the best way to start. When you see a piece of fan art blow up on social media, look at your portfolio and see if you've drawn the same character. If you have, compliment the artist, then post your version of the character as a reply. Do something similar whenever someone posts a clip from a movie, a TV show, a game, an anime, a work of fiction you've drawn fan art of. Are other artists having a discussion talking about how they've been growing as artists? Are they asking for help to improve an aspect of their art? Make a comment relevant to the discussion and make sure you include your most relevant artwork in the post. That might not be your personality, but if you want to grow your fan base as fast as possible, you better master this skill. The reason why is that if the original comment blows up and you happen to be one of the first comments on said post, then you're going to get significantly more impressions on your post than you would by just starting an original post on your own account. This is how small accounts grow quickest on places like X and Blue Sky, the main social media platforms where you should be posting your artwork. Ergo, your first goal on sites like these is finding key accounts you can genuinely interact with. This system only works if you do genuinely like the accounts you're following and feel that fans of the original post will also enjoy seeing your work as well. If there isn't a connection, you're liable to get blocked or called out by the true fans of the big account. Now here's something you might not expect from a religious goody two-shoes like me. Let's talk about not safe for work content, which is corporate speak for porn. I'm not going to cast a moral judgment on you in this guide. I will neither condone or condemn your work if that is what you're interested in or considering drawing. This is a pretty touchy subject, so I've saved it as the last slide for this section in the video. If you have no interest in drawing NSFW content, if you find it to be an uncomfortable subject, or if you'd rather not listen to me make a bunch of sex puns, I recommend using the timestamps to skip ahead to the next section. For those of you who do plan to, shall we say, stick around, here's what I can tell you as someone who has worked with and advised clients who create adult content. Drawing sexually explicit content will get you more impressions more quickly, but there are consequences for doing so. You will find yourself pigeonholed into drawing NSFW content, and you will make it very hard or even impossible for large businesses to ever hire you. This is a truism that becomes truer the more explicit your content becomes. It's not impossible to put the genie back into the bottle if the day comes where you change your mind. However, to do so, you often have to delete your account and start over from square one with a new name and a new brand. You can likely attract some of your old fans, but doing so often is a danger because they'll constantly bring up the fact that you were once their favorite porn artist. As a general rule, my advice to clients is that you can still get offers from major studios if you don't cross the hard line. If the worst your posts include are characters in swimsuits, underwear, and even light nudity such as butts and toros. Hardcore nudity and explicit sex are absolutely going to put you on a no-hire list for major entertainment studios and businesses unless you're willing to undergo a major rebrand, especially for businesses that to maintain a perfectly clean image, like banks, hospitals, people of a conservative or religious affiliation, locally owned and family-oriented enterprises, and the like. I would also remind that you risk endangering your current day job if your boss isn't comfortable with having an employee who draws porn. I don't care what labor laws say. They will find an excuse to get rid of you if your employer finds your art and doesn't want it associated with their company. So be very careful when considering if you want to post NSFW and 18+ content. Notice that I said post, because the truth is that you, as an artist, should at least learn how to draw the naked body. Something interesting I've learned from working with clients over the years is that despite the negative connotations and risks associated with it, there are businesses who do specifically seek out artists who have drawn naked characters in the past, even when hiring for family-friendly content creation. The reason why is that drawing a naked body requires a level of understanding when it comes to character design beyond what traditional artists are capable of. There aren't many businesses that will ever hire you to draw naked people, but having the capacity to do so means you've achieved a level of artistic talent that will help you rise to any challenge expected of you by a client. And none of us can deny reality. There is money to be made if smut is all that you want to draw, though please note that it is getting harder now, pun absolutely intended, because of the growing popularity of generative AI models that can turn any piece of art into porn with a mere click of the button. Which is my way of getting off of this cheeky topic and transitioning into the next section. How should you handle your art in a world full of generative AI? So this is the part of the video where I'm going to upset pretty much every artist watching right now. And I'm going to do it by making 4 statements that, while they are my opinion, you really should treat as fact if you want to make a career out of being a freelance artist. Statement 1. If you haven't already done so, you should absolutely take the time to see what kind of artwork generative AI is making, so you yourself can make artwork no clanker can ever replicate. Statement 2. Generative AI is a problem that is going to have an impact on your burgeoning career as a freelance artist. Statement 3. Generative AI is not as big of a problem as many artists are making it out to be. Statement 4. However you feel about generative AI, you will lose potential clients if you talk about it. So if you want the most amount of work, you should just keep your opinions on AI to yourself. I am saying these things because I am neither super pro or anti-AI. I just made a video talking about how my current feelings towards generative AI is boredom. That being said, I personally understand why other people do hate all forms of generative AI. I worked as a copywriter for 10 years and lost all of my freelance clients because of it. However, as tempting as it is to sit here and whine about how my life was completely upended by generative AI, I have bills to pay and a world to conquer. So stop being a whiny bitch and do something productive with your life, instead of wasting your time on useless internet debates. Here are the top things I think you should be aware of when it comes to generative AI. First off, it is absolutely in your best interest as an artist to take the time to see what the most popular generative AI tools are capable of producing. Does your stomach churn at the very idea of entering so much as a single prompt into Grok or ChatGPT? Tough luck, kid, because that is what you're being, a child. If you want to succeed as a freelance artist, if you want to succeed in any meaningful capacity in modern society, then I want you to print out this speech from Andor and engrave it into your heart.
Calm, kindness, kinship, love. I've given up all chance at inner peace. I've made my mind a sunless space. I share my dreams with ghosts. I wake up every day to an equation I wrote 15 years ago, from which there's only one conclusion. I'm damned for what I do. My anger, my ego, my unwillingness to yield, my eagerness to fight. They've set me on a path from which there is no escape. I yearn to be a savior against injustice without contemplating the cost. And by the time I looked down, there was no longer any ground beneath my feet. What is my sacrifice? I'm condemned to use the tools of my enemy to defeat them. I burn my decency for someone else's future. I burn my life to make a sunrise that I know I'll never see. And the ego that started this fight will never have a mirror, or an audience, or the light of gratitude. So what do I sacrifice? Everything.
A human artist that succeeds in an era where AI generative content grows more and more prevalent is a testament to the indomitable human spirit. Every piece of art you make is a monument that proves that you were here, and that you mattered more than farcical facsimiles produced by soulless circuits. However, you cannot defeat an enemy without understanding them, and you cannot understand the limitations of generative AI without using it, which is what you need to focus on and learn what your enemy is, even if that means using that which you hate most. Artists remain and will remain for the foreseeable future because generative AI is really, really good at making certain types of art and really, really bad at a few things that only human artists can do. If you spend enough time using generative AI, you can figure these out for yourselves and maybe even uncover some weaknesses that I will never discover because I am not good at drawing. So here is what generative AI currently sucks at, and it's all to do with how generative AI, quote, learns and reproduces art. Generative AI is effectively a recycling machine dependent upon using what is known in machine learning as a diffusion model. This is how the process works. A data scientist collects a large sample of data. In the case of image generation, the data scientist might collect thousands, tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands of samples. Each of these samples will consist of an image with an image tag describing in text what the image is. A diffusion model will be created using the data gathered by the data scientist. The generative AI will create equations by associating text, how images are constructed. If 10,000 images all have the alt text of a woman with black hair, and if each image actually has an image of a woman with black hair, then the diffusion model will get really good, really fast at producing images of women with dark hair when given this prompt. But here's where the issues with generative AI start to emerge. Generative AI diffusion models rely greatly on alt text tags to learn what an image consists of. It only knows what a woman with dark hair looks like because data scientists feed it actual images of women with dark hair. If a data scientist were to give a generative AI model a series of pictures of men with blonde hair, but each image had the alt tag of a woman with dark hair, then the generative AI model would produce illustrations of men with blonde hair when given the prompt of a woman with dark hair. I just gave you one of the secrets to guarding against AI, but we'll address that later. Data scientists are not stupid, so they're able to create AI generative diffusion models with generally accurate alt tags. The problem, and the reason why many copywriters are still finding work, is that there is an art to alt tags that most data scientists do not understand. Imagine if a data scientist was training a diffusion model with pictures of a woman with short black hair, except one picture is of a real person and the other picture is an anime character. The only thing the two have in common is that they both have short black hair, which is the main alt tag for each image. However, if you asked the generative AI to make you a picture of a woman with short black hair, which one would it take more from? So data scientists add more tags and more samples. Great, now the machine has two actresses to choose from and two anime characters to choose from. But it also has more tags it has to process. So the data scientist does it again, and again, and again, which is why data scientists will use hundreds, thousands, even tens of thousands of data samples to create their data model. But that's where generative AI, currently hits a brick wall. Just as it becomes hard to find a book at a bookstore when there are 10,000 books to choose from, a generative AI model can be overwhelmed if the diffusion model is trained off of too many samples. This is why bigger isn't always better, and why people interested in creating diffusion models for image generation often limit their focus to do specific things. Unlike a human who is truly versatile, A diffusion model is usually only good for producing one specific art style. A jack of all trades is master of none, but oftentimes better than a master of one. My first piece of advice to you as an artist is that you should try to learn to draw in several different styles. Doing so will attract a wider range of clients and may even lead you to draw in a unique style that no generative AI can easily replicate. It will also help your personal brand, which is instrumental if you want to make it big as a freelance artist. Now let's go over the other failure points for generative AI diffusion models. Generative AI already has its struggles when it comes to producing art with one character. What happens if it tries to deal with art that has multiple characters in it? The tags double, which means that the prompts grow longer, which means that it handles more data than it knows what to do with. Simply making art pieces that has more than one character confuses the hell out of generative AI and isn't something it's going to be able to do well for the foreseeable future. Though it might be more work, the more characters you have in your drawing, then the more impossible it will be for AI to replicate your art. Speaking of which, do you want to know another problem that generative AI has? Complex backgrounds. You see, most data scientists focus on the tags for characters when feeding images into a diffusion model. That's because it's easy to assign tags to certain characteristics, and when looking at character art, the character is the most important part of the image. The wheels fall off the wagon pretty fast when it comes to the background, because there is a subtleness to environments AI has trouble replicating. Just look around your own home or apartment. Yeah, if you look at your windows, your tiles, your carpet, your walls, everything seems uniform. However, if you look closer, you notice the defects, the scratches, the dents, the missing patches, details that your subconscious mind picks up that generative AI doesn't notice because there's no alt text tags for it. That's why you as a person can tell whether something is new, used, or old a split second, whereas a generative AI struggles to make anything feel lived in or realistic when it comes to backgrounds. Third, and perhaps most difficult of all, if you really enjoy freelance drawing, then you should start learning how to make comics, meaning short form and long form comics, as soon as possible. This will involve learning other skills beyond drawing. But while generative AI models can make artwork, it can't do so consistently, and it certainly can't make artwork and tell a story at the same kind. Making comics is also going to be a huge help for your brand, because you need to stand out as an artist. Any artist can make a simple illustration after all, or else they wouldn't consider themselves artists. Creating comics, however, is a skill beyond the average artist. So start learning the art of comics if you're that worried about generative AI. So the question you might be asking yourself now is how to protect your artwork from generative AI. There is good news and bad news when it comes to this conversation, but we'll stick with the good news first. Technically, there are ways to protect your art from being used in generative AI. There is no foolproof system, especially when human data scientists are involved, but there are a couple of things you can do to make it harder for automatic image scarpers to steal your work if you care that much about it. As I alluded to earlier, a generative AI doesn't just need an image to train on, but alt tags to learn from as well. When you upload an image to the internet, you are traditionally given the option to either let the service make the alt tags for you, or, for most websites, set your own alt tags. If you really hate AI, this is where you can sabotage it. Be as vague as possible in your tags, or make your tags explicit and AI won't take an interest. Or poison AI diffusion models by deliberately mislabeling your image. However, be warned that this is cutting off your nose to spite your face. Many websites in their terms of service warn that they will ban your account if you deliberately mislabel your images. Furthermore, even if your account isn't banned, you are screwing over your discoverability. The same algorithms that help programs scrape data for diffusion model training are also what allow real people to find your work. Unless you have a huge following already, you will make it significantly harder to find your work if you mislabel your alt tags. And no, just saying no AI in your alt tags or social media profile doesn't work. Trust me, I've tried. And I've learned that there are even data gathering bots out there that specifically seek out accounts and images that use the term no AI out of spite. The only other good method I've found to keep these data gathering bots from stealing your work is to upload your image in a file format other than PNG and JPG. Bots have a harder time processing GIFs, and only specialty data gathering bots will download video formats like MP4. However, be aware that you are once again harming yourself if this is the route you take. GIFs harm the image quality, and videos bloat the file size so much you make it harder for everyone to interact with your content, especially on social media platforms like X and Blue Sky. So now we need to have a genuine discussion about how protective you should be of guarding your artwork against data scraping bots looking to incorporate your work into generative AI diffusion models. The short answer? The second you post your work online, you're screwed. I go into this subject in much greater detail on my last AI video, but the reason why we're all doomed is because of how DMCA laws are structured. Most internet websites, in their terms and conditions, state that if you upload your content to their website, they can do close to anything that they want with it. Oh, they might not be able to explicitly resell your artwork, but they are allowed to reuse it for promotional materials, for data analysis, for... Oh look, your favorite social media platform entered into a multi-billion-dollar partnership with ChatGPT. And that's weird. Your social media platform just told ChatGPT who the most popular artists are on the platform? And hey, your posts have been really blowing up lately. Except it's weird you're getting so many impressions, but no one is really leaving any good comments or feedback for you. And why does your analytics say that most of your recent interactions are from people living in Southeast Asia and the Middle East? You can do the math yourself. One way or another, your data is getting scrapped by someone around the world, no matter what protections your social media platform promises. This is especially true for data scientists who single out your work. The reason why using fake text alt tags and poison pill drawings doesn't work in the long run is because of human correction. If someone really wants to reproduce your art style, they'll manually download your content, convert it to the correct format, and give it the right tags, and feed it all to their generative AI model. Sure, a high-quality diffusion model often needs thousands and thousands of samples, but people who love a particular artist can make a workable diffusion model with as few as 30 to 50 drawings by fusing it with other pre-existing models and programs. All in all, you can't really protect yourself from generative AI stealing your work, but here's the real truth you need to accept. The generative AI issue is overblown because this isn't a new problem for artists. Artists have always had to deal with thieves in one form or another. Plagiarism, the naughty word that schools warn against time and time again, and yet plagiarism continues to abound in the artistic community, like an infestation of rats that just won't go away. That's because artists do have trouble differentiating between inspiration and flat-out theft, especially in the early parts of their career. Is copying the same pose plagiarism? Is using the same colors plagiarism? What if part of the image was traced? Is simply using another artist's work as inspiration crossing a line? What constitutes plagiarism and what constitutes training is going to vary from artist to artist and person to person. Regardless, the fact is that ever since one artist learned from another, artists have always incorporated each other's ideas and even their work into their own. Of course, we've never seen it on such a soulless scale until the arrival of generative AI and their diffusion models. But the point I'm trying to make here is that artists stole from each other long before computers became as advanced as they now are. The same point can also be made about counterfeiters. Are you tired of people passing off your work as their own just because they made a few simple edits with a generative AI tool? Well, guess what? That's been a problem for artists for centuries. Cheap reproductions have existed for thousands of years. Grok and ChatGPT just made it easier to produce inferior fakes. Sure, they'll satisfy the average consumer, but the genuine article is always going to matter most for reasons I'll explain in the next section of this guide. But if I've been showing you some tough love in this video so far, then this is where I'm really going to put my foot down. Stop whining so much about generative AI. Stop complaining so much about generative AI. No, I do not love it. And I wished we lived in a world where data scientists didn't figure out how to mass-produce slop with their diffusion models. I also wish we lived in a world where no one was homeless or hungry, where everyone died at a ripe old age surrounded by their loved ones, and where the McRib was on sale for all year long and could be bought at McDonald's for $1. Time to tell you a famous story. Once upon a time, a man escaped from an insane asylum. Worried about getting caught and truly believing that he didn't need to be kept locked up, he decided that he needed to act as normal as possible so he might escape the guards that went looking for him. He wasn't sure how to do that, so he decided that whenever he talked to someone, he would state the most obvious thing in the world that no normal person would ever disagree with. "Hello, good sir. Have you noticed that the sky is blue?" "Hello, fair madam. Have you noticed that the sky is blue?" "Hello, little child. Have you noticed that the sky is blue?" The man said this to every person he encountered in town, and within the hour the guards tracked him down and put him in a restraining jacket. "But why? How did you find me?" the man cried out as he was dragged back to the asylum. "Because everyone in town was so damn sick of you telling them that the sky is blue, they figured out you must have escaped from the asylum." The guard grumbled, and so we come to the end of our moral tale. There are many lessons to take from this short story, but one of them is that whether the man was actually insane or not is irrelevant. Even though he wasn't dangerous, the fact that he was a nuisance is what ultimately got him locked up. He didn't say any lies. He didn't say anything wrong. He just didn't act in a way that society expected of him, and so he was punished for it despite simply telling the truth. Here are a few other uncomfortable truths that I shared in my last AI video. Modern civilization only sustains itself as well as it does by exploiting the laborers of other countries. We preach multiculturalism, but hold our noses when other religions and cultures do something we strongly dislike. We all want life to be fair, but we throw a fit when things don't go our way. As a former copywriter who had to completely change his way of life because of generative AI, I commend you for willing to speak up against it. But as a man now acting as your business advisor, I strongly suggest you keep your opinions, pro or anti-AI, to yourself. Why? Because it's finally time to talk about the most important thing you need to focus on besides your artwork, and that is your personal brand. Who are the greatest artists in history? I'm sure you have your favorites. Perhaps they're classical figures like Leonardo da Vinci or Michelangelo. Perhaps you prefer the surrealist works of Salvador Dali and Max Ernst. Do you love pop art from Andy Warhol or Keith Haring? Maybe you got into manga because of artists like Kentaro Miura or Akira Toriyama. But guess what? There have been better artists than every artist I just listed. You can even trace their work and make small edits to improve it. And yet, even if you make a better Mona Lisa than the Mona Lisa, your version will not be more valuable. Other artists have taken over on Berserk and Dragon Ball over the years, but their work isn't as valuable as the work drawn by the original artists. You can find street artists in New York who can produce the same work made by Andy Warhol on the spot. But why is it their art isn't as valuable as Andy Warhol's? Because it's simple. Because it's not just the art people are buying. It's the brand that people are buying into. There is almost no distinguishable difference from Nike and other premium running shoes, but Nike remains the favorite for many athletes around the world. There are better sports cars sold at cheaper prices than cars made by Ferrari, but people pay more for worse performance so they can say they own a Ferrari. More than anything else in the business world of the 21st century, everything you do should be focused on cultivating and growing your brand. This is how you overcome plagiarists. This is how you overcome counterfeits. This is even how you overcome generative AI. You make a strong enough brand with your name and artwork that nothing the world throws your way will be able to stop you. An easy thing to accept, but a hard thing to put into practice, right? Question is, how do you build your brand? I wish I had a short and pithy answer to that question, but the fact is that everything you do is a part of your brand. Everything you say, everything you draw, every interaction you have with someone on the internet, all if it is incorporated into your brand. What kinds of things you like to draw, when people can expect new artwork from you, how you present your art, who you share it with. All of this is about your brand. Now, if I somehow didn't manage to upset you in the last section, I'm really going to do it now. Because artists, as a collective whole, have a branding problem. Pretty much every business client I have worked with in a professional capacity has, at some point, said the following: "Man, I love art, but I absolutely hate artists." If you are an artist, you probably have a good and healthy image of people who practice your craft. An image that is not shared with the general population, especially people who opt to work in less artistically creative fields like law, accounting, medicine, and so forth. I probably don't need to tell you what they think of you, but I'm going to do it anyway because everyone needs a reality check now and again. The average person looks down on you. They might admire your art, but they think you're stupid for investing so much time in a hobby that probably won't make you a sustainable living wage. They think you're emotionally unstable, unreliable, egotistical, a delusional fool detached from reality with your head stuck in the clouds. Your priority then, if you wish to become a freelance artist who gets a steady stream of work, is to convince everyone who interacts with you that you are not any of these things. Sure, other artists they've dealt with might have been like that, but you're different. You're the best artist in the world for the simple reason that you don't have any of those problems. And that is why it is in your client's best interests to always go to you for work. Therefore, here are some general guidelines you should follow when you consider posting content online. It starts with keeping your complaining to a minimum. Finding people to commiserate with is part of the reason why social media has become so popular. But anyone who has worked an office job knows an employee who spends all day complaining without getting any actual work down. Furthermore, you risk offending someone who might not think the thing you're complaining about is a problem, so you should keep most of your negativity to yourself. This extends to the problems in your personal life, and the challenges you may or may not face. People love an inspirational story, but when it comes to getting work done, bosses generally don't look to people whose houses are constantly on fire for help. The average person already considers most artists to be emotionally and mentally unstable as it is, so don't give potential clients any reasons to confirm their prejudiced biases. This leads well to my next point, which is to set realistic milestones and goals for yourself. I understand you would like to become the most popular artist on the internet with millions of adoring fans around the world by tomorrow morning, but Rome really wasn't built in the day. The internet is more competitive than ever, and it took even an online branding genius like Mr. Beast 5 years just to grow his channel enough to make a sustainable income from it. The formula for success is a mixture of hard work and good luck. The harder work you put in, the less good luck you need, but there is always going to be some aspect in luck involved. Don't let yourself get discouraged when you see another artist succeed and grow faster than you. It doesn't matter if you are more talented than them or have been working as an artist longer than they have. The last thing you want for your brand is to be seen as a catty, petty, jealous asshole who puts down others instead of contributing to the larger artist community. Bringing us to consistency. Be consistent in everything you do. Try to maintain a level of stability in all your actions. People are absolutely creatures of habit in almost every aspect of life, but that is especially true for consuming content. If you can train your audience to expect certain things from you on a reliable basis, then they will subconsciously return to check out your stuff from sheer force of habit. That means you need to set a posting schedule for yourself that you can stick to as much as possible. Give yourself room to take longer if you need to, extra time to finish a complicated art piece, but also remember that you do need to post as regularly as possible to maximize your exposure as an artist. Even so, do not compromise your quality, because any fans you do win will notice when you half-ass a piece of art. Fans want each experience with your art to be as close to special as the last one, and all it takes is one bad or underwhelming experience to break the spell you have on your fans and potential clients. Alternatively, when a client has been following your art for a while, a reliable and consistent schedule and quality will help them understand what they can expect from you if they hire you for a job, which will save you trouble on trying to sell your services to clients. Hi, I'm Anthony, and we're going to visit Sesame Street so we can learn the word of the day. What's today's word, Elmo? Why, it's professionalism. A word I would tattoo on every freelance content creator I have ever met, because the difference between people who consistently get work and people who do not is professionalism. Because besides your ability to draw, that is what your potential clients want to see from you. That doesn't mean you have to be prude or a dullard, that you can't have fun with what you make or play around when you're online. At the same time, you don't need to pretend to be anything you aren't and force yourself to be chirpy or friendly just so you can attract more clients. One of the most serious clients I have ever met owned a chain of lingerie boutiques here in America, while the funniest client I ever worked for asked me to write copy to promote his funeral home. Professionalism, ultimately, boils down to believability. It is the believability you project that you will do whatever your client hires you to do without messing up the work order or making the work experience miserable. Just learning how to exude professionalism goes a long, long ways in attracting clients. The final section of this video is dedicated to making clients happy, which in turn will help you maintain a professional brand. However, I want to close out this section with something I think is important to talk about, but didn't really fit neatly into any one particular segment of this video. Is it worth your time growing your brand by making yourself available as a work-for-hire freelancer on sites like Upwork and Fiverr? The answer is that it depends on what your goals are as an artist for your personal brand. Because everyone visiting freelance sites like Upwork are looking to hire someone, the people who see your profile are much more likely to hire you than the average person who sees you on social media. The problem is that Upwork and Fiverr charge pretty hefty fees to both the client and the artist for any work done. This is why they're usually good for one-off contracts, but for long-term work, people try to work around these sites. The bigger problems with places such as these is that there's no easy way to grow your brand on a freelance job site apart from just offering your services for cheaper rates than anyone else. The hope is that by doing so, you will attract jobs and clients who will leave you good reviews, which will make the job site algorithm more likely to recommend you to other potential clients in the future. But that means that you can't actually grow your brand on these websites if you're not working. But for many freelance artists, they can't attract new customers because the algorithms are just recommended customers to the other artists who are already working. It's a vicious cycle that makes it hard for new artists to break in, especially since you can't really use much of your personal art to try and boost your visibility on websites such as these. For these reasons, I think having an artist profile on these websites is worth it for the potential clients you'll attract, but even the top artists on sites like Upwork and Fiverr rarely stand out on social media once they leave these work-for-hire websites. If your goal is to build a global name with your brand, social media is going to be the primary method for sharing your art with the world. Congratulations! You have successfully begun negotiations with a potential client to work on an art commission. The hardest part, of simply getting someone to notice you, is over. Everything else from here on out is going to be smooth sailing, right? Wrong. This is where you really have to put on your game face on, artist, because interaction you have with your potential client will impact your brand and potentially your future earnings as a freelancer. Me and the businesses I have worked with have met some incredible artists over the years, but have refused to give them repeated work because the artists were absolutely horrible to deal with. Talent can excuse smaller issues in a work relationship, but as you have seen with many a politician and actor who has fallen from grace, people will cut even auteurs loose if they're just too much of a pain to put up with. I'm going to share the things businesses and your typical client will care about the most when you enter into a work agreement with them. Some of this may seem silly to you. Some of it may seem obvious. Some of it may even seem unnecessary, but it doesn't matter. If you want to be a freelance artist, you are doing what you can to convince other people to give you their money so you can enjoy one of the more pleasant jobs in life. If you want to keep making money, then you need to convince nearly every client you work with that they should keep coming back to you for a pleasant and beneficial work experience. That starts with deadlines. Nothing pisses off a client more than an artist who misses a deadline. It doesn't matter if you were hired to make a promotional piece of art to promote a big business, or a personal piece of art that the client doesn't even intend to share with the rest of the internet. They are giving you money to make something for them, and as soon as you give them a deadline, the expectation is set on when the art will be delivered. If you miss that deadline, you will disappoint your client, so good luck ever getting work from them again. So here's my advice. Whenever you're talking about deadlines with a client, take however much time you need and add 20 to 30%. If you think a project will take 10 days, tell the client 12. If you think it will take 4 weeks, tell them 5 weeks. If things go according to your own projections, you can deliver the art to your client early. And when things come up in life, then you have the extra time. You don't need to disappoint your client by asking for a delay. What if the client has a specific deadline in mind? Then you need to ask yourself if it's realistic. If you think you can finish the art with room to spare, take the deadline. But if you think it's going to be a problem, then be upfront about it. If it's simply impossible to finish the art in the expected time frame, don't take the job. It's better to pass on a job that would probably give you a bad review than try to rush on a project that leaves everyone unhappy. Now let's get to the part of the agreement that really matters. How should you handle money? There are plenty of scammers on the internet. There are fake artists who will never deliver, and also thieves who will take a work in progress and use AI to finish it so they don't have to pay you. This is the one negative downside to freelance work agreements outside of sites like Upwork and Fiverr, in that there's not much you can do if one side of the transaction tries to rip off the other. So what generally works for most people is having an agreement for multiple payments. The client will pay for half of the work up front, and the rest of the payment will be delivered upon delivery of the final artwork. If the client rips off the artist can at least take solace in having half of the payment. And if the artist fails to deliver to the client, then the client didn't lose as much money as they would have if they had paid the entire sum up front. Both sides have motivation to complete the transaction, and in general, this keeps most client-to-artist agreements honest. For larger scale projects, you might break this down even further. If someone hires you to draw 10 characters for them, it's reasonable to ask for payment after every 2 or 3 characters instead of waiting until the very end. But make no mistake, if one side of the transaction rips off the other, then it is the person's moral responsibility to scream to the heavens about what went wrong so other people aren't ripped off as well. I mentioned that it is in your best interest not to complain too much on the internet, but if a client ripped you off in any way, then please do everything you can to let the whole world know. That might be because I have a personal hatred of thieves, but I do think that the only way we're ever going to have a nice internet again someday is if we all do a better job calling out bad actors. We can also go over some of the things you should do once you've accepted a commission for a project. Well, you should ideally ask all of your important questions before you accept the job, but once you are paid, you definitely want to ask any questions you thought of while preparing for the project. For some stupid reason, I've met many artists who seem almost afraid to ask their client questions. No. Why would you think that? Unless your client is an absolute psychopath, they want you to ask questions. Questions are a good sign that you're taking the job seriously, and a great way to build a rapport with your client and bolster the professionalism of your brand. Once you've begun drawing, I would recommend reaching out to your client and showing your works in progress. A client wants to feel like you're actively working on their assignment, and works in progress are the best way to do that. Works in progress will also help you and the client discuss details that might not have come up in the original pitch. The difference between the average artist I've worked with and the best artists I've worked with also comes down to basic communication. Even if you're working on a large-scale project, such as drawing dozens of illustrations or characters, I highly recommend you send your client a message at least once a week explaining what work you've done. At most, you should never go more than 2 weeks, or your client will get pissy and wonder if you've forgotten about the project they hired you for. Periodically reaching out to your client and making them feel like they're the most important person in your world is the easiest way to keep a client happy and patient as you work on their art. But at some point in your art career, you're going to enter into a work agreement you need to get out of. Maybe the client is awful to work with, or you realize that they're associated with a cause you want nothing to do with. Maybe you've experienced a personal setback in your life and can no longer complete the project. Maybe you've overestimated your abilities and come to realize you lack the talent to finish the work. There's no easy answer on what to do, especially because the solution to your problem will change depending on the situation. Sometimes you just gotta tough it out and see it through, but do so with the knowledge you'll never work with this particular client again. Sometimes you just have to have an honest conversation with your client and explain that you need more time or money, that life happens and things aren't going the way you thought. Sometimes it's better to just give the money back so you can hold on to your honor and your soul. There is no magic ball for life. You do have to play some things by ear. But I also know that good preparation tends to avoid most problems, and many of the issues people have in life could have been avoided with even basic planning. Contrary to popular belief, asking for forgiveness is never better than asking for permission. If you think there is going to be an issue with a project, always tell your client about any potential problems up front, and you'll save them and yourself a ton of grief. This has already been a pretty long video, so much so that it's about twice the length of the average script I write for this channel. That being said, I genuinely want every aspiring artist who wants to make money off of their talent to succeed, so I have shared as many nuggets of wisdom and experience I could think of in this video. When I originally planned the ending for this guide, I thought about titling this last slide, "Can you really make money as a freelance artist?" That question is too obvious. Of course you can make money as a freelance artist, because you've gone online and seen many of the other artists do it. What you're really wondering is how can you make as much money making art as other successful freelance artists? The answer is simple. You are what you offer. When someone comes to hire you for a commission, you have to ask yourself, what is it in your brand that people find so appealing? Is it the way you draw certain characters? Is it the reputation your art has among certain communities? Is your client hoping you will repost their commission and share it with your thousands of social media followers? We have always lived in a plagiaristic society, and generative AI has only compounded art theft. I don't envy any artist who aspires to make a living off of their art. Even so, I do not think it is impossible either. I do not think you are too late to the game. You and every artist who took the time to learn from this guide has the potential to become a great artist, beloved and supported by fans across the world. But you will only do so by becoming a mercenary. You will only do so by figuring out that which no one else in the world but you can offer. No other artist, no generative AI program, no thief or plagiarism, no superfan, or even the artists who come after you will be able to copy. Start making that which only you can make, and you'll change the world before you know it. Good luck, and I look forward to seeing what you make, mercenary.
And thank you so much for watching. This video guide was made as a sort of love letter to all the great artists I've worked with over the years, especially those who might feel discouraged right now due to the rising threat of generative AI, along with the general uncertainty regarding the current global economy. I don't have all the answers, but I hope there was something in this guide that will help you on your journey to support yourself by making art. So if you have a question for me or tips that you want to share with other freelance artists, be sure to share them in the comment section below. Otherwise, see you all in the next video, mercenaries.